Welcome to the iPad Podcast, a weekly podcast from Mac's Future.
Okay, welcome to episode 74 of the iPad Podcast. This is Lex at maxfuture.com, and today is October 2nd, 2011, and we have a nice iPad show today. There's going to be big news coming out this week, and so remember, this is a chit-chat-free podcast, and any positive feedback that can be given in the iTunes store would be greatly appreciated. So let's get to it, all iPad stuff. Okay, so this is a big week coming up because October 4th, Apple's going to have a big event on campus in which it's going to unveil the iPhone, the next generation iPhone. But this is an iPad show, so why should we care about the iPhone? Well, they're cousins of each other, the iPhone and the iPad, and they share something in common. They share an operating system in common, and the operating system we know is called iOS 5. That'll probably come out either on October 4th or shortly thereafter. Now, all summer long, iOS 5 has been in beta. And by beta, I mean it's been available to people who've joined the Apple Developers Program, which only costs $99 a year. And there's been various versions of the iOS 5 beta out there. Now, we all know a lot of what the features are going to be in iOS 5 because Apple previewed them earlier in the summer when Apple revealed the iOS 5 beta at the WWDC conference. And there's a lot of new features. Now, one feature that hasn't been in the beta but is supposedly coming in iOS 5 is called Assistant. And Assistant has been described as Apple implementing the Siri app that it purchased a couple of years ago. Remember, Siri was that voice recognition app that was on the iPhone where you could give it instructions and commands. And Apple purchased Siri. And Apple supposedly also has some sort of business relationship or some sort of licensing maybe of technology from a very famous voice recognition company called Nuance. Now, how may you know Nuance? Well, Nuance makes the Dragon speech recognition software, and Nuance has been around for a long time. And so a number of sites have said they've spotted some code here and there in the latest, I don't know, either iOS 5 beta or something, which indicates that there's going to be a feature in iOS 5 called Assistant. And Assistant is going to be basically voice recognition in the operating system. And up till now, Apple has kept the wraps up on this feature of iOS 5. So a lot of people think on October 4th, when Apple does its event on campus to unveil the iPhone, that they'll go through this new feature, the Assistant. And Assistant basically is supposed to be this incredible voice recognition technology that's going to be in the operating system, which means you're going to be able to do a lot of voice commands for all sorts of things with the iPhone and probably also with the iPad. Now, one of the cool things that they've been discussing on the internet is that Assistant also has this thing where it asks you questions back. So you might be able to say, hey, I want to call somebody. Assistant will say back to you, well, who do you want to call? A friend of mine. Let me look at my friends group, that sort of thing. Same if you're looking for places. Assistant maybe take you through some questions. But I guess it was 9to5Mac or something like that, one of those websites that basically said that people who've seen Assistant have said it's incredible. So that's going to be one of the big features that hasn't been already implemented in the iOS 5 betas, and a lot of people think Apple's going to unveil on Tuesday, October 4th. So I'm really looking forward to that because Up till now, we've been through various paradigm changes in computing. Apple really pioneered with the Macintosh and the Lisa computer back in the 80s, the first sort of window-based computers. And before that, it was just like, typing instructions. And then we have sort of Windows. And Apple also pioneered the mouse. A lot of people take the mouse for granted, but back when the personal computers first started, the first ones in the 70s didn't have a mouse. And then, of course, Apple pioneered the touch computing that we know with the iPhone and the iPad. And the next paradigm in computing is going to be true voice recognition. This is sort of like in Star Trek, where they're always talking to the computers and the computers are talking back. This is really futuristic stuff. And so, I'm really looking forward to it. So, but there's many other features that we do know, definitely, because it's been in the beta and Apple's talked about it, that are in the iOS 5 that are really going to enhance the iPad. So let's discuss them briefly. Well, one thing that's coming to the iPad in iOS 5 is that it's going to be, for the first time, PC free. And this is what Apple says on its website. PC free means independence for all iOS devices. With iOS 5, you no longer need a computer to own an iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch. Activate and set up your device wirelessly right out of the box. Download free iOS software updates directly on your device. Do more with your apps, like editing your photos or adding new email folders on your device without the need for a PC, Mac or PC, and back up and restore your device automatically using iCloud. Now, I think this is going to be huge, and it's going to be huge, and we'll get to it because the competition is already there to some degree. And it's really important because to a lot of extents, the iPad is getting more and more powerful, and more can become a substitute for a regular computer for a lot of people. But one hindrance to that effort up till now has been that the iPad needs to be synced and tethered, first of all, for the iPad to even get activated now when you buy it in iOS 4, you got to hook it up to a computer running iTunes, and that activates it. So that's a real hindrance, because what if you don't have a computer? And there's a lot of people in the world who don't have a computer, and the iPad could be their first computer. And up till now, to back up an iPad, you really need a computer. There was nowhere else to back it up. But that's all going to change, because iOS 5 is going to allow you to activate the iPad right out of the box without another computer or iTunes. And iOS 5 is also going to allow you to back up the iPad to a computer. I'm sorry, not to a computer, to iCloud in the sky. Not in the sky, in the cloud. Sorry. All these images of iCloud, and I'm thinking, in my mind, when people say iCloud, I think it's up in the sky, but it's not in the sky. It's in the internet. And basically, the iCloud are server farms that Apple has. Servers that are essentially computers that, provide storage and backup. So that's going to be huge. That's going to truly make the iPad a standalone computer. And, I know that a lot of people are going to, who maybe didn't buy one before, are now going to buy one just because, maybe they never had a computer, or they only want one computer, and the iPad's going to be it. So that's going to be key. Now, another key feature in iOS 5 for the iPad as well as the iPhone is going to be the Notification Center. And the Notification Center is just going to be a great place to get all the notifications that you want, all the important things that you want. And so what is it? Well, here's how Apple describes it. it basically says Notification Center, all your alerts all in one place. You get all kinds of notifications on your iOS device, new email, text, friend requests, and more. With Notification Center, you can keep track of them all in one convenient location. Just swipe down from the top of any screen to enter Notification Center, choose which notifications you want to see, even see a stock ticker and current weather. New notifications appear briefly at the top of your screen without interrupting what you're doing, and the lock screen displays notifications so you can act on them with just a swipe. Notification Center is the best way to stay on top of your life's breaking news. So this is really cool. I had a chance to play around with it, and in the beta, and basically it's very, very useful. The people who have Android say that Apple's sort of taking this from Android, but it's clearly something we need because it's just handy. And what's nice about it is you just brush down from the top of the screen, and this Notification Center slides down, and you can set what types of notifications you want, because you can go into the settings, and there's a notification setting, and you can basically say, look, I want notifications from the reminder or the calendar or the mail app or certain apps to populate that Messenger Notification Center. So this is going to be very useful. You could also you could decide there are just certain apps that you want to send the information there. You could have a sports app just send baseball scores to that Notification Center, or you could have the stock app send stock prices to that Notification Center, or the weather one. So it's very, very handy. And what's also nice about it is that it's going to work even when you lock the screen. So it's just going to sort of be there, and you're going to be able to launch apps from the Notification Center, or I guess if you double click on it. So that's going to be very, very cool. Okay, another feature that's going to really improve your life on the iPad as well as on the iPhone is iMessage. Essentially, you're going to have free instant messaging between your iPad and any other iOS device running iOS 5. And that's a lot of devices. You probably have a lot of friends and family members who use the iPhone, or use the iPod Touch and run or are going to be running iOS 5. And this is going to be huge. Here's what Apple says about iMessage. Apple says, iMessage, iPad and iPod Touch join the conversation. With iMessage, we've created a new messaging service for all iOS 5 users. You can send unlimited text messages via Wi-Fi or 3G from your iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch to anyone with one of those devices. iMessages is built into the Messages app, so you can send text, photos, videos, locations, and contacts. Keep everyone in the loop with group messaging. Track your messages with delivery receipts and optional read receipts. See when someone's typing, and enjoy secure encryption for text messages. Even start a conversation on one of your iOS devices and pick up where you left on another. Now this is really huge because, first of all, the phone companies have been totally screwing people with text message fees. And this technology is going to make it so that frankly, you can use the iPad, if you think about it, like your phone, because now, you're going to have text messaging on your iPad. And if you have a 3G iPad, you could turn it into a phone. You could just dump your phone, get a voice over IP app like Skype or Call To or whatever, something like that. And you could turn your iPad into a phone and text message, and iMessages is going to allow you to do that sort of text messaging. So the real beauty of it is if you have it on the iPhone and you think you're sending a regular text message to someone, and it knows that the other person has iOS 5 on the iPhone, it's going to quickly or quietly turn it into an iMessage and not send it through the phone company and send it through Apple's servers as an iMessage. You won't even know the difference. But the iPad is not a phone, so essentially you've brought text messaging to the iPad. Now, at the beginning, it is limited to iOS devices. Would be interesting in the future if it allows you to text people who don't have an iOS device. But look, I think it's going to be a very popular feature, both on the iPad as well as the iPod Touch and also the iPhone. So that's another thing to look forward to next week. Okay, so something else that's really going to enhance the iPad with iOS 5 is the Reminders app. And basically, Reminders app is a very, good app, which third-party apps try to provide, and now Apple's stepping into that space and doing it. And here's how Apple describes it. Reminders, a better way to do to-dos. Next time you think to yourself, don't forget to just pull out your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch and jot it down. Reminders let you organize your life into to-do lists, complete with due dates and location. Say you need to remember to pick up milk during your next grocery trip. Since reminders can be location-based, you'll get an alert as soon as you pull into the supermarket parking lot. Reminders also works with iCal, Outlook, and iCloud, so changes you make update automatically on all your devices and calendars. So it's a very simple, clean, to-do app, basically. But the thing that really blows me away is the location reminders, because you can say, when I arrive at a certain spot, I want to be reminded of something, or when I leave a certain spot, I want to be reminded of something. And basically, it uses if you have a GPS chip in your iPad, if you have a 3G iPad, it's going to be really effective at location. Even with Wi-Fi, it's going to be effective at location. But, it's really going to be handy. I mean, how many times do you travel somewhere with your iPad and you want to be reminded of something? This is going to be the same for the iPhone. So this is a really kind of nifty application, and making it location-based really makes it even more, interesting. Okay, so another really cool upgrade in iOS 5 for the iPad is going to be Safari. Safari is something people use, maybe the most on the iPad for browsing the internet. And one of the things that's been really missing that regular computers has is tabbed browsing, and the ability to open up multiple websites and have them available there as tabs. Now basically you have to press this square, and like little miniatures of the pages pops up, and you have to choose which one you want. But in iOS 5, you're going to be able to have tabs, and you're going to be able to have bookmarks like in the bar of the browser, just like on a regular computer. So that's going to be really cool. The other really cool thing is in Safari on the Mac, you've got that reader feature, which is like a little button in the address bar. And now on both the iPhone and the iPad with iOS 5, you're going to be able to press that button, and it's going to do the same thing it does on a Mac, which is it's going to turn it into sort of a layer, easy to read layer of text, stripping out, the advertising and just, this beautiful clean text. And you're also going to have a reading list, which is sort of like Instapaper, but just in the browser. You're going to be able to add to your Safari browser, just like you can in Lion with Safari on the Mac, websites to your reading list to read later. So this is, again, what's going on here is the iPad is becoming more and more like a full-fledged computer. And, the upgrades to Safari are just definitely heading in that direction. Okay, so another cool feature that I think a lot of people are going to be happy to have in iOS 5 on the iPad is social network integration. And Apple's already announced that Twitter is going to be integrated into everything. And here's what Apple says. Apple says, Twitter integrated right into iOS 5. iOS 5 makes it easier to tweet from your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch. Sign in once in settings, and suddenly you can tweet directly from Safari, Photos, Camera, YouTube, or Maps. Want to mention or reply to a friend? Contacts applies your friend's Twitter usernames and profile pictures. So you can start typing a name and iOS 5 does the rest. You can even add a location to any tweet no matter which app you're tweeting from. Well, there's a lot of rumors that, so basically, well, let's talk about Twitter. So basically Twitter is going to be baked into everything. You're going to have in your settings the ability to put in your Twitter account. And then apps which, worked with the new operating system are going to basically automatically know your Twitter account. And so you're not going to have to then, right now with apps that work with Twitter, you got to bless each app to work with Twitter. You got to go in and put in your Twitter credentials, and you go to some confirmation page on the web that says, yes, you want this app to work with Twitter. But now what's going to happen is you just sign into Twitter in the settings of the iOS 5, and apps that work with Twitter automatically, you're going to say in the settings, yes, work with Twitter. And so you're going to be able to tweet from pretty much all apps that are enabled. Now one social network, well, there's now 3 big social networks. I mean, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, and there's Google+. And there's a rumor that Facebook may be baked into iOS 5 too. Up till now, it hasn't been in any of the betas, and Apple's had sort of a little bit of a strained relationship with Facebook. Remember last year, Apple baked in Facebook into its Ping social networking for music, and Facebook then pulled it because apparently Apple and Facebook couldn't come to terms as to how that relationship would work. The rumor supposedly was that Facebook wanted access to more customer information from the relationship than Apple was willing to provide. But now Facebook is under pressure because Google since then has launched Google+, which is a tremendous social network. I really like it a lot. To some extent, it's like a combination of Twitter and Facebook. And so maybe Facebook's going to cozy up to Apple and maybe relent and agree to Apple's terms. And so we may also see Facebook built into iOS 5. So that's going to be that's going to be a big plus too, certainly with at least Twitter in there. Question is, will they ever have Google Plus baked into iOS 5? And to some extent, I don't think so, because Apple seems to be in big competition with Google and the Android phones and the Android tablets. So maybe Apple is hesitant to form any sort of alliance with Google since it sees Google as a competitor. But, we'll have to see what the future holds. Maybe even other really cool features in iOS 5 that's going to make the iPad even more fun to play with. Okay, so one really cool feature, which I had a chance to play around with, is the ability for multitasking gestures for the iPad. And this is what Apple says. iOS 5 includes a few new moves and shortcuts to help you get around even quicker on your iPad. You can use 4 or 5 fingers, swipe up to reveal the multitasking bar, pinch to return to the home screen, and swipe left or right to switch between apps. Now, people have been able to implement this switching between apps function even before iOS 5, I think, with doing something in Xcode, and then I don't know, I was able to do it somehow. But this is going to be in iOS 5, and what this means is, let's say you opened an app and then you go to another app. Well, remember, those apps are sort of existing in the background somehow. But now, instead of closing an app and then opening another app, you can just swipe left or right with your 4 or 5 fingers, and you swipe to the old app that you were in. So now you're going to be able to work closely with multiple apps by just swiping quickly, back and forth between them with 5 fingers. I found that very useful. I got really used to using that feature. Okay, so another feature that I think is just a killer feature for the iPad 2, and it's only good for the iPad 2, is AirPlay mirroring. And this is what Apple says. Wow your audience in the boardroom, classroom, or living room. AirPlay now supports video mirroring, which means you can wirelessly and securely stream whatever's on your iPad 2 to your HD TV via Apple TV. Everyone in the room sees exactly what's on your iPad display up there on the big screen, even when you rotate iPad from portrait to landscape or zoom in and out on photos. So this is huge because the Apple TV is only $99, and it basically acts as a Wi-Fi connector to a big screen TV or to a projector. And this means you can, if you get this $99 Apple TV and you've got like Wi-Fi hook up to it, you can walk around anywhere with the iPad in vicinity and mirror what's ever on your iPad to the big screen TV or the projector. So this is going to be great for teachers or any sort of presenters, business presenters at conferences. They're going to be able to not only run their Keynote app, which is like PowerPoint, wirelessly, but they're going to be able to wirelessly show anything that's on their iPad. They're going to be able to quickly switch, let's say, from Keynote to a video, show the video wirelessly. They could, switch to some sort of whiteboard app and draw stuff and show that. They could also demo how to use the iPad and how to use certain programs on the iPad. It's going to be a great boom for people teaching the more complex programs how to use them. So AirPlay mirroring is just, to me, it's incredibly powerful technology. Other cool features that we're going to have next week or the week after is Wi-Fi sync in iOS 5. So if you do want to, you don't have to just sync your iPad to the iCloud when you get iOS 5. You could still, if you want to, sync it to your computer. And you're now going to be able to do it without a USB cable. You're going to be able to do it with Wi-Fi sync. So that's going to be really, really cool. So look, to me, these are the big features that I see in iOS 5 that are going to make it really, take the iPad and the iPad 2 to another level. Okay, so the big news for the iPad this week is that iPad now has a new competitor, and that's the Kindle Fire. And the question is it really a competitor? Basically, earlier this week, Amazon, through its CEO, Jeff Bezos, announced new Kindles. And, remember, the Kindle is just a sort of black and white e-reader that did very limited things, just read e-books. And there still is that. With advertising, the cheapest Kindle is $79. And now there's a Kindle Touch that's a black and white e-reader with advertising at $99, and there's a Kindle Touch with 3G connectivity for $149. But the big announcement was that there is a color, somewhat Android-based Kindle that costs only $199, and it can do things. It can do some of the things that the iPad can do. And so in some ways, this is a competitor to the iPad, and it's a competitor in the sense that we can do a lot of things. For example, you can read documents on it. You can email documents according to the website, including Word, PDF, and you can watch video on it through Amazon Prime service. You get a 30-day trial, and you can, if you pay $79 a year, you can get free 2-day shipping plus see 10,000 movies or TV shows. Now, supposedly, there's not a really wide selection. Also, with the Kindle, Kindle Fire, you'll be able to email using a built-in email app, and apparently, you can also stream music from the Amazon Cloud Drive. And, of course, there's ebooks and children's books and, all the Kindle books. And there's going to be web browsing through something known as Amazon Silk, which is Amazon's own browser. Now, what are the tech specs? Okay, so here are the tech specs of the Kindle. It's got a 7-inch multi-touch display with IPS in-plane switching technology. And let's see, it's 1024 times 600 pixels. So you get 169 pixels per square inch. The official size is 7.5 inches by 4.7 inches times 0.45 inches. It weighs 14.6 ounces. Let's see what else. It only has 8 gigabytes of internal storage, which Amazon says is enough for 80 apps plus 10 movies or 800 songs or 6,000 books. And you get free cloud storage for all Amazon content. In terms of battery life, Amazon says that it has 8 hours of continuous reading or 7.5 hours of video playback with wireless off. The charge time takes approximately 4 hours through a included USB adapter. Now, it doesn't have a 3G chip. It just works on Wi-Fi. And it has a USB port, which is a micro B connector for USB 2.0. It has a stereo audio jack. And I guess here's some of the formats it supports. It supports Kindle AZW text, PDF, unprotected Mobi, PRC natively Audible, what else? Doc, DocX, JPEG, GIF, PNG, BPM, BMP, non-DRM, AAC, which is Apple's music format, MP3, MIDI, OGG, WAV, MPEG-4, VP8. And it comes with a 1-year warranty. Now, so will it, how does it stack up against the iPad? Well, the Kindle, here are the pros in terms of it being successfully, competing with the iPad. The Kindle Fire is $300 cheaper than the cheapest iPad. So that's like a pro for the Kindle Fire. The Kindle Fire also runs on Android and allows, I guess, Android apps to run it, as well as allowing users to surf the web with a browser called Silk. That's a plus for it. The Kindle Fire is smaller and thus lighter than the iPad, so it might be attractive to users who find the iPad to be too heavy. I could see, getting the Kindle Fire just because it's so light. I mean, the iPad I take with me when I commute on the subway, and you can't really stand up and hold the iPad with one hand. Your hand gets tired. On the other hand, if you're sitting down, it's easy to hold with two hands the iPad. And it may be that the Kindle Fire, at 14.6 ounces, you can hold with one hand. And then the other thing is that, the pro for the Kindle is that the Kindle Fire is tied to Amazon Prime free movie service. So it's only going to cost you $79 a year. Now, what are the cons? The cons are that the screen size is 45% the size of the iPad screen. And, it might be that the screen is too small for the Kindle Fire to really compete with the iPad for the same audience, because I think a lot of people look at the iPad as almost like a substitute for a laptop. The Kindle Fire only has 8 gigabytes of onboard storage. Now, at a minimum, you get 16 gigabytes with the cheapest iPad, but you can go up to 64 gigabytes. So you don't have that flexibility with the Kindle Fire. The other thing is the Kindle Fire doesn't have any 3G data. Now, remember, one of the reasons that the Kindle, black and white Kindle, was so popular was that it had that free unlimited 3G data. But Amazon didn't do that with the Kindle Fire because probably couldn't negotiate that sort of free service from whatever data provider there was, because Kindle Fire is obviously going to consume larger amounts of data than an ebook reader like the regular Kindle. The other thing that is sort of a detriment for the Kindle is that the iPad has zillions and zillions of apps already on it, and it's much further along in terms of having a gigantic stable of apps. So, and also apps that run on the iPhone or iPod Touch also run on the iPad. So you have much more flexibility in terms of the apps that you can buy and run on it. And also the iPad is tied to the iTunes store. And most people have more iTunes music than they do Amazon music. So I don't know if the Kindle Fire is going to be able to sync with iTunes, but a lot of people have massive music libraries in iTunes, and they might not be too keen to get the Kindle Fire because they might not be able to get their iTunes music onto it. So it'll be interesting to see how they compete. Okay, so the big news for the iPad this week is that iPad now has a new competitor, and that's the Kindle Fire. And the question is it really a competitor? Basically, earlier this week, Amazon, through its CEO, Jeff Bezos, announced new Kindles. And, remember, the Kindle is just a sort of black and white e-reader that did very limited things, just read ebooks. And there still is that. With advertising, the cheapest Kindle is $79, and now there's a Kindle Touch that's a black and white e-reader with advertising at $99, and there's a Kindle Touch with 3G connectivity for $149. But the big announcement was that there is a color, somewhat Android-based Kindle that costs only $199, and it can do things. It can do some of the things that the iPad can do, and so in some ways, this is a competitor to the iPad, and it's a competitor in the sense that we can do a lot of things. For example, you can read documents on it. You can email documents according to the website, including Word, PDF, and you can watch video on it through Amazon Prime service. You get a 30-day trial, and you can, if you pay $79 a year, you can get free 2-day shipping plus see 10,000 movies or TV shows. Now, supposedly, there's not a really wide selection. Also, with the Kindle, Kindle Fire, you'll be able to email using a built-in email app, and apparently, you can also stream music from the Amazon Cloud Drive. And, of course, there's ebooks and children's books and, all the Kindle books. And there's going to be web browsing through something known as Amazon Silk, which is Amazon's own browser. Now, what are the tech specs? Okay, so here are the tech specs of the Kindle. It's got a 7-inch multi-touch display with IPS in-plane switching technology. And let's see, it's 1024 times 600 pixels. So you get 169 pixels per square inch. The official size is 7.5 inches by 4.7 inches times 0.45 inches. It weighs 14.6 ounces. Let's see what else. It only has 8 gigabytes of internal storage, which Amazon says is enough for 80 apps plus 10 movies or 800 songs or 6,000 books. And you get free cloud storage for all Amazon content. In terms of battery life, Amazon says that it has 8 hours of continuous reading or 7.5 hours of video playback with wireless off. The charge time takes approximately 4 hours through a included USB adapter. Now, it doesn't have a 3G chip. It just works on Wi-Fi. And it has a port, a USB port, which is a micro B connector for USB 2.0. It has a stereo audio jack. And I guess here's some of the formats it supports. It supports Kindle AZW text, PDF, unprotected Mobi, PRC natively audible. What else? Doc, DocX, JPEG, GIF, PNG, BPM, BMP, non-DRM, AAC, which is Apple's music format, MP3, MIDI, OGG, WAV, MPEG-4, VP8. And it comes with a 1-year warranty. Now, so will it, how does it stack up against the iPad? Well, the Kindle, here are the pros in terms of it being successfully, competing with the iPad. The Kindle Fire is $300 cheaper than the cheapest iPad. So that's like a pro for the Kindle Fire. The Kindle Fire also runs on Android and allows, I guess, Android apps to run it, as well as allowing users to surf the web with a browser called Silk. That's a plus for it. The Kindle Fire is smaller and thus lighter than the iPad, so it might be attractive to users who find the iPad to be too heavy. I could see, getting the Kindle Fire just because it's so light. I mean, the iPad I take with me when I commute on the subway, and you can't really stand up and hold the iPad with one hand. Your hand gets tired. On the other hand, if you're sitting down, it's easy to hold with two hands the iPad. And it may be that the Kindle Fire, at 14.6 ounces, you can hold with one hand. And then the other thing is that, the pro for the Kindle is that the Kindle Fire is tied to Amazon Prime free movie service. So it's only going to cost you $79 a year. Now, what are the cons? The cons are that the screen size is 45% the size of the iPad screen. And, it might be that the screen is too small for the Kindle Fire to really compete with the iPad for the same audience, because I think a lot of people look at the iPad as almost like a substitute for a laptop. The Kindle Fire only has 8 gigabytes of onboard storage. Now, at a minimum, you get 16 gigabytes with the cheapest iPad, but you can go up to 64 gigabytes. So you don't have that flexibility with the Kindle Fire. The other thing is the Kindle Fire doesn't have any 3G data. Now, remember, one of the reasons that the Kindle, black and white Kindle, was so popular was that it had that free unlimited 3G data. But Amazon didn't do that with the Kindle Fire because probably couldn't negotiate that sort of free service from whatever data provider there was, because Kindle Fire is obviously going to consume larger amounts of data than an ebook reader like the regular Kindle. The other thing that is sort of a detriment for the Kindle is that the iPad has zillions and zillions of apps already on it, and it's much further along in terms of having a gigantic stable of apps. So, and also apps that run on the iPhone or iPod Touch also run on the iPad. So you have much more flexibility in terms of the apps that you can buy and run on it. And also the iPad is tied to the iTunes Store. And most people have more iTunes music than they do Amazon music. So I don't know if the Kindle Fire is going to be able to sync with iTunes, but a lot of people have massive music libraries in iTunes, and they might not be too keen to get the Kindle Fire because they might not be able to get their iTunes music onto it. So it'll be interesting to see how they compete. Okay, so at least one site or a couple of sites have basically figured out that Amazon is actually losing money when it sells the Kindle Fire for $199. Electronista.com basically figured out, IHSI Supply figured out that it costs at least $209.63 in raw parts and manufacturing to make the Kindle. So it could be that Amazon's losing money at a $10. It's losing at least $10 a Kindle Fire every time it sells it. And one analyst thinks that Amazon's losing $50 every time it sells it. Now, why is Amazon doing that? Well, Amazon's doing that in the hopes that it makes the money selling things through the Kindle Fire, like selling music or selling video or selling books. But the thing is, how much money can Amazon make? I mean, it doesn't really have much of a markup in selling books and selling music. And Apple, in contrast, it doesn't really count on its revenue from iTunes or the App Store. Apple's content to break even selling apps or selling books or selling music. Apple makes its money selling premium hardware and has a margin and makes like 35% profit on each iPad. And why should you care as a consumer? I mean, isn't it better that Amazon is just selling something at cost? And I would argue no, because when you invest in a platform, you want that platform to succeed and be around for a while. Because let's say you buy Kindle apps and you buy apps that only work on the Kindle. If the Kindle fails after a couple of years, you're going to be stuck with all the software that you can't use somewhere else, and you get stuck learning how to use a device, and then it goes out of business. Now look at the tablets that have already gone sort of by the wayside. Hewlett-Packard's WebOS touchpad experiment pretty much has failed, and Hewlett-Packard is probably going to sell whatever assets it has of the touchpad or WebOS. Similarly, the BlackBerry Playbook is somewhat of a failure. So imagine the poor people who bought that device. So, I'm skeptical that Amazon can really succeed with the Kindle Fire because it's basically losing money on each one. And how is it going to make a lot of money from selling digital music? The digital music, Amazon's been getting into that field by cutting the price and taking a loss on music like by Lady Gaga and stuff like that. And I've been following the blog of a very smart guy who used to work for Nokia. It's called the asimco.com blog, and his name is Horace Daydu. And his point is that, look, I think he's making this point that, people who've tried to have services throughout the world, it's very hard to have a service throughout the world. Apple only recently, after years of trying, has been able to get the right to sell music in certain countries in Europe. And so it's hard to sort of succeed in a service, and that's what it is when you're streaming music or selling music or books. And that when you're selling the hardware at a loss, you're less likely to invest in upgrading it. Your upgrade cycle is going to be lower. And Amazon already was late with its regular Kindle upgrade cycle because, look, Amazon came out with the Kindle and sort of beat Barnes & Noble to the punch, and then Barnes & Noble came out with the Nook and then upgraded the Nook to also have a color Nook that runs on Android. So in some ways, the Kindle Fire really competes with the Barnes & Noble Nook, the color Nook. So I don't know. I wonder how many of you are going to get the Kindle Fire. I may get it just to, see what it's like, see if it's worthwhile. Certainly, the thing that the Kindle Fire has going for it is the price. The price is the big thing. And then after that, I would say it's the size. In some ways, while the size is a detriment in the sense that it doesn't have the big screen, its lightness might be a virtue for a lot of people. So here's the thing, though. It's not coming out till mid-November, November 15th. So you have to wonder how good is it going to be? If Amazon is announcing it now, and it's not going to come out till mid-November. Right now, it's vaporware. That's what they call devices that have been announced but are not there yet. So it's definitely vaporware now. Now, apparently, this rivalry between the iPad and the Kindle Fire, which has just started, already got some attention on Saturday Night Live. The website, the website CNET had a video embedded in there, a clip from Saturday Night Live, which I'm not going to play. But the description is basically that Seth Meyers, who brings the latest news, had announced the Kindle Fire launch, and then he explains that it's a challenge to the iPad. And then he offers an important observation on the Fire. And I guess this is the funny part. He says, quote, "It's expected to sell well among parents who always buy the wrong thing," end quote. And then it goes on to say, "How many kids this Christmas will open up their little rectangular gift boxes and discover that mom and dad are on a budget this year? Think of the tears, the shame, the recalcitrant gnashing of teenage gum-chewing jaws. Still, I'm holding that the Fire is already a very popular buy in the patent trolling industry," the article says. "Apparently, everyone there is already revving up their black ambulances in excitement about the number of touchscreen interface and cloud service patents that the Fire might have already transgressed." So, this comes from the blogger Chris Matizisik. So, good points are made here. I mean, there's already, Apple and Microsoft have all these lawsuits against Android devices, and the Kindle Fire runs on Android, and, will Amazon get sued? Microsoft is already collecting a license from a lot of Android devices, and I have to imagine that there's going to be litigation with Amazon too. Now, one thing we're supposed to hopefully get next week is a true Facebook iPad app. We haven't had one ever. We have a Facebook app on the iPhone, but none on the iPad. And TechCrunch reports, according to the Washington Post, that a iPad app should be on its way. and that they're on the verge of releasing it. And it would be kind of cool if on October 4th, when Apple has its announcement, that it rolls out one more thing, and that's a Facebook app for the iPad. That would be nice. Okay, let's go to some devices. Now, one device you might want to get if your iPad takes a lot of beating is something from OtterBox. And PadGadget announced this or described it on their website. And now I know OtterBox because some friends of mine have OtterBox, that's spelled OtterBox, on their iPhone. And basically, these are cases that are very rugged and greatly protect your iPhone, that make it very hard to break. And apparently, OtterBox has a OtterBox Reflex iPad 2 case, which costs $69.95 and really, really protects the iPad. And they have like a little video here, and
Hi, I'm Adam Whitby.
Let's see. Let's fast forward. And
it's a highly protective.
Well, he shows that it's a
The shield protects the screen.
pretty rugged case, and it has like a stand too. So I don't know, if you're looking for something, it looks pretty good. If you're looking for something to protect your iPad that's very rugged, and this guy basically drops it on the ground. He just sort of flings it on the ground. So this could be something that really protects your iPad. You might want to check it out if you're doing rough and tough stuff, if you're like into construction and bring your iPad with you. If you're out in the field with it, the OtterBox case may be the thing that protects it. So check it out. Okay, so now I want to mention just some apps for the iPad that look really great, that I haven't tried out yet, but that appear to be doing very well in the App Store for the iPad. Now, one that I'm going to definitely test out this week is called Play It Yourself for HD, and it's a free app. Once again, it's these apps that have in-app purchases, but here's what it basically claims to do. It's a game that helps you learn to play the piano. So basically, you see the score and the upcoming notes are highlighted for you to play on the built-in piano, and it's basically, a way to learn the piano. Now, I have a piano, and I remember when I was a kid, there were those like little plastic pianos where the keys would light up. But this seems to be much better, particularly if you have got young kids, because it shows the real notes of a piano score, and then there's keys underneath it. And this is a nice, we've seen a lot of piano apps or piano-related apps on the iPad, and this is the first one that I've seen where you have scores above it that are highlighted and you play along. So it's gotten 4 out of 5 stars, and I guess you can buy more scores, with these in-app purchases. So the free version gives you classics like Fur-Elise from Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata from Beethoven, Air on G String from J.S. Bach, the St. Louis Rag. What else? It's got a Waltz in A flat from Brahms, Waltz in H Moll from Chopin, the Star Spangled Banner, Carmen, the Prelude from Bizet. So this is kind of cool. This is definitely innovative. It'd be nice if you could, if it scrolled through the scrolls and you could shut off the keyboard and use it with a real piano. But again, this is free. It's called Play It Yourself for HD. And it's free if you just want those songs. And if you really like it, you can buy with points that you purchase additional songs. Another free app that's doing very well in the App Store is called My Sketch by Minu, M-I-I-N-U, and basically it says it's free for a limited time. It's usually $2, and it's a sketching app, and basically you can turn your photos according to the description, to beautiful, realistic sketch. You can create unlimited sketches, high resolution. Photos can be taken directly from camera or photo album. So I guess you could then use a photo as a model for your sketch. You can choose 20 different types of sketches. There's adjustments for brightness and contrast, and you can share on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr. So it looks like, for free, it's a worthwhile sketching app, and apparently it's doing really well in the App Store because I guess it is free. So check it out. It's called My Sketch. And another game is doing very well in the App Store called Tap Pet Hotel. And basically these are one of these virtual world games. And again, this one's free, but it's got in-app purchases. But basically, you have a kennel, and you grow your small kennel into a world-class pet hotel. So it's one of these like virtual life games where, like, Farmville, where you grow a farm. Here you're growing a pet store. And it says here there are 60 different rooms of all themes and shapes and sizes. There are 50 different pets. You can collect money from your guests. You can unlock new rooms. So look, if you into that sort of gaming, check it out. It's free. You can always delete it. It's not that big in terms of download size. It's only 19 megabytes, and it's called Tap Pet Hotel. Okay, that's it for episode 74 of the iPad podcast. I guess when we next speak, hopefully iOS 5 will be on our iPads, and we can discuss how that's going, and also anything else that's discussed at Apple's October 4 event. Thanks for listening. Again, this is a chit-chat-free podcast all about the iPad and iPad-related news. This is Lex at Mac's Future. Thanks for listening.
This has been a Mac's Future production.